in my phone.
Court is in session with Ryan in Sacktown on If You Don't Like That. Now, Ryan in Sacktown.
Oh, must be Rhino.
It's Taco Tuesday!
What's up, everybody? My bad, running a couple minutes late. You know, doing the dad thing, the kids out of school, trying to get the sound bites ready, have everything prepared for you on, how do you want to describe today? I'm really curious about how Kings fans, now that we've slept on it, are feeling about last night. First off, it was one of those games that was just like you felt stressed out after you watched the game. And it wasn't because of how the game ended. It was because of how the game was played, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It was hectic. You're like, dude, second half, Colby Jones coming in and playing his ass off. But in the end, the Kings blow it at the end. And I think what hurt the most about this one is the fact that they executed. They just didn't convert. Now, there's a lot of things that we can pick apart about this one last night, and we will. Trust me, Coach Brown, in his way, you know, Coach Brown's not going to come out and rip people. It's just not who he is. He's a player's coach for the most part. He's closer to a player's coach than an authoritarian, like a Popovich, like a Bobby Knight, those kinds of guys. And Nick Saban, by the way, that Nick Saban commercial for one of those vacation rental services is hilarious. Has anybody seen that commercial? Freaking hilarious. There's a nice barbecue, but you can't use it. Going over the rule book, something like an Airbnb. But Coach Brown did rip into this team last night. He did. He called out the starting lineup. We'll talk about it here on the other side. In fact, we will hear from Coach Brown here in a few minutes. It is Tuesday, which means it is a Jerry Tuesday. We don't have Jerry Reynolds. He'll be with us tomorrow for the Kings Roundtable, 4 o'clock with Grant and myself. But since Jerry Jones didn't really give us that much good stuff this week, the Cowboys have been winning. Unfortunately, when the Cowboys win, we don't get good Jared drops. We've gone back into the archives. We're going to sprinkle in a few of those. You can call the show using the link in the chat. You can also call, scan in the QR code on the screen. Or, Al, I saw you tried to call yesterday. Don't know why the Al hotline wasn't working. I can assure you it's working today. 916-822-9485. Call that number. Let's get it started on a Tuesday right here on the Kings Court. Court is in session.
Grant and Ryan break it down. It's Sacktown, we're the crown.
Needs to be more aggressive on the offensive end, but this is the kind of Williams, the D-Box. Fox, goodbye. Oh, if you don't like that, you don't like.
What's up? Ryan in Sacktown with you. Haunted house. Haunted home. I didn't want to do haunted house because it's too close to haunted horse. You knew that would probably smoke him out. Too close of a show title. But the Golden One Center, the Kings cannot seem to get it done in that building. If you saw my post on the X, putting the link for the show out, inviting everybody to join us, I put out some numbers, which I don't think anybody else has put out to my knowledge. And it makes sense because last night on the postgame show, Grant and I are talking about what's different about the Kings at G1C. What exactly is it? And we put up the home versus the road records. And we looked at the stats. Yeah, there's a couple things that vary by a few percentage points here and there, but nothing that jumped off the screen. In fact, the net rating is higher at home, 4.3. I think that has a lot to do with that Utah game. But I did a little bit more research. I did some digging. So I said last night on the post-game show, it's got to be the defense. The defense has to be the reason that other teams are coming into the G1C and giving the Kings a below 500 record at home. And it's not just this season. It's been going on since the building opened. Think about how many games the Kings have left on that court. And I'm not going to hit them too hard for last night because of the way they played, who they were missing. But it's the defense. Check this out. Defensive rating at home. The Kings are 23rd in the NBA. 115 is their defensive rating at home. On the road, the Kings are 9th in defensive rating. It's the defense. It is the defense. We've got the models up. We'll go over them here in a little bit. We'll kick those over to full screen so we can digest that together. But that is a dramatically different style of defense between home and the road. And why is that? What is it about playing at Golden One Center this team does not enjoy? Why does this team
Struggling.
Or why are they
Struggling.
at home? I just don't understand it. So get up in here. Want to hear from all of you. Put the chat up for a second. See what you guys are up to. Doing the late thing. Yeah, my bad. Like I said, very unprofessional by me. My bad. I ran out of time. That's what happened. So got to be better with the clock. The clock. It's a Jim Rome thing. Sorry. Tristan. Yeah, it's all right. A lot of things, paying attention to the detail. Yeah. Coach Brown last night ripped into the starters. We're going to get into it in a second. You gave your own personal phone number. Oh, no, I did, John. No, I didn't. I did not, John. Nice try. Damn. But I assure you that will happen at some point. That is going to happen where I'm like, hey, hit up the King's Court. Yeah, you can call on the Al hotline, 9163. Yeah. Yes, it does start with a 3. You can guess it from there. Let's see. Dennis, clock management. Yeah, look. Who was it? AB last night said it. Jay said it last night. They pointed out that coach should have called a timeout when Denver was making a run there in the fourth quarter, at the end of the fourth quarter. I don't disagree with it. So here's the stretch that we're talking about. Denver goes to the free throw line, and the Kings are up. Then the Kings miss a triple. Denver hits a 3. The Kings get an offensive rebound. They hit a triple. Denver goes back to the free throw line. The Kings miss a 2. Denver hits a 2. The Kings miss a 2. Denver hits a 3. That's the Aaron Gordon one. The Kings turn it over. Denver comes back down, gets a deuce. And finally, at 1:15, coach calls a timeout. So should there have been a timeout during that stretch? Mind you, before that stretch and during that stretch, the Kings were up 117 to 109. Coach had some timeouts in his back pocket. I get it. But then out of the timeout, the Kings go 2, 3. Those were both Foxy. Then you get that huge dunk from DeMar DeRozan. And then the unfortunate jump shot by Jamal Murray, making it 131-29. So we'll get into it here in a second. Yeah, tough one. Agree with you. Completely agree with you. Kings need Josh Hart. Big Knicks fan. Must have been watching the channel for the past couple of years. That's one of the names. Even back to 22, 23, that was one of the big names that both Grant and I were clamoring for. Because look at, okay, how many times for those that have been with us here on If You Don't Like That for the past 3 seasons, has Grant said, we need a point guard. We need a backup point guard. That goes back to 22, 23. That goes back to the trade deadline of 22-23. Don't get a true point guard. Don't get a true point guard. So I finally come on the air and I make the statement. I said, I think it was late last year, early this year, said the Kings don't have a true point guard. They don't. There is not a true point guard on this roster, and this team would look dramatically different with a true point guard. What happens? Malik Monk steps into the starting lineup. The Kings are 4-3 in that stretch. The numbers are through the damn roof. And Malik, although he is not a true point guard, he's the closest thing the Kings have had to a true point guard. And look at how different the offense is now. It's dramatically different. Out with the DHO, in with the pick and roll. Game changer. Now, that one adjustment is not going to carry this team through the season. Forget about it. It's not carrying the team through the season. You're going to have to keep adjusting because teams are going to catch up. Like Denver last night, they throw the zone at the Kings late in the game. They did it late in the first half, and then they threw it in again in the fourth quarter. And the Kings, I thought they did a decent job navigating it. I really did. They just didn't finish. Sabonis had an awful, just about as bad of a turnover as you could have. Sabonis was cooking last night. He had the ball just a little bit in front of the free throw line. When you are playing offense against a zone, the way that you break a zone is getting the ball to the middle of the court. Get the ball in the middle of the floor. If you get the ball at the free throw line, middle of the key, you can break that zone. And that's exactly where Sabonis had it, and the zone was broken. He had a wide open 8-footer, which he had knocked down 2 or 3 times earlier in the night, and he decided to pass it, and it was a turnover, which then led to the Jokic 3. So we can pick it apart all day long. We're going to listen to Coach Brown here in a little bit. Vlad Father, this is funny. I've never gotten that. That is one that I have never gotten. Tim Curry. Who the hell's Tim Curry? The one that I always used to get was Mike Bibby, especially when I kept my hair short. The fact that I was around Mike a lot, whether it was training, whether it was running his camps, a lot of people used to think I looked like Mike Bibby. Not anymore. Mike might be heavier than me, but it's muscle. Mine is not muscle anymore. Tim Curry. I hope that's a compliment. I'm guessing it's probably not. I think the Kings need a Snickers bar. Adam, man, with the jokes. Adam Oos with the jokes. Jerry Jones with the jokes, too. We've got Jerry Jones clips coming up. Let's see. Dog in the 916. We have another dog in here. We've got Chili Dog. We've got Corn Dog. We've got Sea Dog. We now have Dog in the 916. Mike needs to stand up for his players more. Domas getting hacked all night as usual. Murray push off on Fox was blatant. Yeah, I think De'Aaron sold it a little bit. I rewatched the game. It was a foul. It was definitely a foul in my opinion, but De'Aaron did a good job of emphasizing it. Let's see. Malone out-energized Brown all night and stands up for his players. You know, the one thing that I was surprised about, and it's easy to second guess, it's easy to Monday morning quarterback. There were 2 plays last night that Domas Sabonis was undercut in the air. And there's certain plays in basketball that are a reason to go. Undercutting somebody in the air is a reason to go. Domas probably isn't going to do it. And the fall was horrendous. The sound of him hitting that floor and the shock that went through his body. Domas, he didn't know where he was at for a second. Not because he hit his head, but he immediately, anybody that's ever had a concussion, anybody that's ever had a high impact injury, your first inclination is to pop up. It's like, I'm good. You pop up and then you fall down. And that's exactly what Domas kind of did. And he took a seat in the first row, collected himself. If you looked at him when he hit those 2 free throws after that, because if he wouldn't have shot the free throws, then he wouldn't have been able to play in the rest of the game. He was off. So I was very, very surprised that Domas was able to come out in the second half and play the way he did. But back to my point, if I'm coach, if I'm a teammate, I'm getting in somebody's face for that. If Jay Crowder would have been on the floor, I guarantee Jay Crowder wouldn't have been having that shit. You do not undercut somebody. If they're in the air, you don't push their hip. You don't do any of that stuff. And that happened a few times last night. Fong, what's up? Mike Brown has got to go. Well, he ain't going nowhere. Can promise you that. Mike Brown is going nowhere. And Grant and I had this conversation last night. By the way, tonight, Grant's going to be back. Make sure that you mark your calendars. 8 o'clock tonight. He's going to be doing an open forum show, taking your calls and talking today's news, recapping the game last night, and starting to preview what I am calling, and Grant agrees with me, a fork in the road for the Kings this season. These 2 games against the Lakers that begin on Thursday. So join Grant again at 8 o'clock tonight. I may or may not be joining Grant tonight. But last night, I asked Grant, I was like, is Mike Brown maxed out this roster? Has he done everything that he can possibly do with this roster? And Grant said yes, and I'm starting to agree with him. So we can nitpick at Coach Brown all we want, but the bottom line is he can only cook with the ingredients that he has in the kitchen. So honestly, I came out about a month ago, and I said the Kings bench is closer to a G League bench than it is an NBA bench. My question for you is, and I want you to be fair. Be fair. Don't put emotion into this. What grade would you give Mike Brown for the way he's used his bench? Consider the limited resources that he has too. What is your grade? I don't think I can't speak for any of you. I can speak for myself. If I was Mike Brown, and no disrespect to these guys, they are 1%ers. They are in the NB freaking A. They have more basketball talent in their fingernails that they clip once a week than we do in our entire bodies. But that bench, it's not up to par. It's not. And if I'm Mike, I'm frustrated. I am really frustrated. And Coach got into it a little bit last night. He didn't really take it out on the bench. He let it be known about the starters. So we'll hit it here in a second. Appreciate all the comments, by the way. Thank you for getting up in here with us. Love seeing the new names. Ryan Crown, like the name. Good job, Ryan. By the way, shout out to Peter Anderson. Peter, dude. That was okay. So Peter, we met a while back. I forget what it was. I think I was dropping something off at Peter's. It was the first year we were doing merch and we were having issues with the shipping. And so I just started dropping shirts off personally. And somehow Peter got my cell phone number. I forget about it. But I shared the story yesterday about my wife changing my text tone to Ryan. Ryan, it's her voice. And so Peter's like, all right, well, hit her with this. And he sends me a recording and it's like, danger, wife, danger, wife is calling. So I put it on there and the reaction was priceless. Good job. Good job, Peter. Appreciate that. We're getting some grades in right now. Dangerous and dirty. I agree. I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to say that they were trying to inflict injury. I can understand how you make that jump out, but you also have to remember the context in which the game was being played. The refs let them play. So they thought they could get away with a little bit more. And I quite frankly, if that's Dylan Brooks, if that's, Draymond, if it's any of those guys, then I'd be willing to make that jump. But those Denver guys aren't dirty. I think some of it was younger guys, inexperience. Because Denver, let's face this fact too. Denver's bench is horrendous as well. Granted, they doubled up the Kings bench last night, but Denver, that's their problem. They have no depth. Getting some grades in. Jeffrey, giving them a B. Okay, a B. Greg, giving them a C+. Flores, what's up? I need to acknowledge all you guys. What's up, y'all?
Acknowledge me.
I think a C is fair. There are times others on the bench should get more time. Sure. Al Parcells once said, If I'm the chef, I should be able to pick out the ingredients. Yeah, you got to be a special type of coach for that, or you go down and you coach college, and you can do that. Look, who can you think of in major sports that's been allowed to have both responsibilities? Brad Stevens. Did Brad Stevens have both with the Celtics? I think he had both at one point. Who else has had both? Jerry Jones has both. Bill Belichick had both. It doesn't always work out great. Did Pat Riley have both? Help me out. Pick me up. Mike Brown's grade is a B. Okay, so I appreciate it. Everybody's being a little bit more level-headed than I thought. So Coach was pissed last night. Now, it's not going to be anything that makes the national news. He wasn't dropping cuss words. He wasn't calling people out per se. But in his own way, if you speak Mike Brown, you could hear the frustration seeping through his voice, not so much at the bench, but with this starting five. And I don't disagree with him. He brought up some really damn good points, after the game. Here's Coach Brown. We're going to look at some stats as we listen to Coach Brown, and I'll jump in between.
Obviously a tough loss. They went zone, and I thought we weren't aggressive enough. I thought their zone kind of got us back on our heels, and our level of aggressiveness was not there. Having said that, I thought we had some decent looks. DeMar caught an 8-footer, and he was wide open, and it goes in and out. Foxy got to his floater, and it goes in and out. I think Domas might have missed one too. I probably, if I would have done it all over again, I would have stayed with the same crew. If we got those same looks, if we didn't, I would have definitely thrown Doug in the game at that time or a little sooner. I thought Keon was doing a hell of a job defensively. And that's why we stayed the way we stayed. But at the end of the day, our biggest thing we told these guys is two biggest things. They're the best team in the league in transition, and we did a decent job with that. But just like I talked about us locking into the small details for 48 minutes, the thing that hurt, they scored 76 points in the paint. 76 points in the paint. And
76 points in the paint. We talked about it last night. Not a massive surprise, though. The Kings were outsized at nearly every position. We'll talk about Colby. We'll talk about Keon here in a few minutes. Coach Brown again. I'll mix in your comments as well.
We have to lock in. We have to lock into the details. And we got back cut more times in this one game than probably we got back cut all year. And it's because our guy on the bottom weak side ball watched. And the thing about it is you guys won't see any of that in the stat sheets. You won't see back cut after back cut after back cut. I'm not going to say it 26 times, but you won't see the back cut in the stat sheet. And until our guys understand that it's about embracing the details for 48 minutes, we're going to be a good team, but we're not going to be where we need to go.
They're not going to be where they need to go. And where do the details come out to? If we want to be frank about it, Nape said it last night, and he was spot on. He was spot freaking on about this. It's the starters. Last night, at least, the Kings came out in slow motion. That looked more like an open gym with no referees than it did an NBA game. And I know Jay called up last night, and he's like, well, if Coach would have had Jay Crowder in the starting lineup, I think it would have been different. I don't think it would have. Maybe Jay fouls Aaron Gordon a couple times. The size doesn't really change. The details were awful last night. Coach is right about that. And he goes on to talk about it some more. The back cuts at the beginning of the game, Coach is right. They were freaking atrocious. They were wide open. There's a couple things when it comes to back cuts. The first thing that's most important is communication. Obviously, the Kings were not communicating, and I'm sure Coach, because he wouldn't stand up in front of the media and go into the guys like this about details and following the game plan if that wasn't part of the game plan last night. Coach Gannigan continues.
The back cuts tonight,
Excuse me.
especially,
That's the one we just listened to. Coach Brown again.
look at the first three possessions. First three possessions, we gave up 3 offensive rebounds. There's nothing that you could do as a coach or anybody on the bench in situations like that, except each man on the floor has got to box out. That's where it started, and that's where it snowed.
BJ, it's a G League bench. I cover the Stockton Kings. It is a high-level G League bench. You got a couple of guys that are fringe NBA, fringe out of the league, or in the G League. I would call them Scals, and no disrespect to Scal. Scal has been incredible down in Stockton, not just on the court, but in the locker room. Kevin Huerter, after Kevin Huerter and Keon Ellis, it's a G League bench. Half the guys in that rotation are two-way guys. It's a G League bench. Mike Brown, still.
Ball. Give our guys credit. I give them a lot of credit. They fought their way back in the game. There was a sense of physicality from the guys coming off the bench, starting with Kobe Jones, Keon Ellis, and whoever else played. There was a level of physicality that we didn't start with at the beginning of the game. There was a level of focus that we didn't start with at the beginning of the game. And again, that's where we as a group have to figure out, are we going to really embrace the details? It's hard to box out, especially when you got guys crashing like they're crashing. Am I going to do it for 48 minutes? I'm wait and see if a teammate gets it. Or am I not going to hit a guy like I'm supposed to? We can't wait to turn it on. Teams are too good in this league.
Yeah. Anything wrong yet? Not to me. Coach keeps going. Again, he's about to get the starters, calling them out.
We can feel good about the consolation prize because we did fight back. But I'll be damned, I wanted to win this freaking game. And we had a chance to win it. And we kicked ourselves in the foot too many times.
He's pissed. That is pissed off Mike Brown, whether you realize it or not. Couple more from Coach.
And I somehow, some way, have to do a better job of getting that across to my group. We can't let the Denver Nuggets come in here and score 76 points in the paint when they're not throwing the ball to Jokic 55 times. Give a lot of credit to the Nuggets. They came out, they did what they were supposed to do, and they found a way to get a win.
Not happy, Coach Brown.
We needed a huge effort from everybody, not just Domas. We needed every single man to step up. Whether it's Colby, Isaac, whoever. We needed everybody to step up, and we didn't get enough collectively tonight.
We hit a lot of audio there, by the way, so I am not sure if we heard the clip where Coach does call out the starters. Even Keegan, who was not playing in this one. The only name that Coach did not mention out of the starting five was Domas. So take that for what it is. I know Malik and De'Aaron talked to the media after the game as well. You can go back and listen to it. I thought Coach Brown and the things that he had to say were far more important than anything that De'Aaron and Monk said. By the way, when these things present themselves, I'd love to point this out for anybody that's like up and coming, trying to get into podcasting, trying to get into broadcasting, covering a team, sports journalism, whatever it is. A couple days ago with the 49ers, I'm like, hey, this is how you will lose your credential. If you are lucky enough to get a credential with one of these teams, it's a very delicate dance with what you ask, how you ask it, and when it is asked. This last night is another example of how you lose your credential. I'm not trying to call this guy out. In fact, I don't even know who he is. I don't think he works for the Kings. Good way to get kicked out of the media room.
Coach, a big part of the comeback happened when Malik Monk was playing ball handler, point guard, playmaker. Sorry. Are we going to see more of that this year? Is that something you think could be a good boost forward if the Kings did more of that?
The comeback happened when we decided to play defense, and when we got out and ran, and when we boxed out. We could score, and I don't even know who was on the floor during that time. Malik hit some big shots, but he can hit all. If you're down 20, he can hit 15 out of 20 big shots. If you don't get a stop, if you don't box out, then they're going to keep that 20-point lead. So our guys finally got to a point where they decided to defend and box out, which gave us an opportunity to get out and run.
Yeah, coach wasn't having that question. Yeah, not a great one. But you guys remember some of the questions before the play-in games last year? Oh boy. Yeah, I thought that was not going to go over well either. So that was Coach Brown, a parlay of his comments last night. The bottom line, if you're just tuning in, the Kings did not do the little things. They did not follow the game plan, specifically the starters. And basically, Coach, if I was going to give you the cliff notes of what Coach is saying, Coach is saying, I can lead you to water, but I can't make you drink. That's what Coach is saying. And that's not the first time, by the way, that we have been hearing that from Coach Brown. In fact, during the Kings losing streak, during that week that they went, or the couple week span where they went 3-7, how many times did we hear Coach Brown talk about the details, the game plan? And some of it, and to be fair, there's areas of Coach Brown that we can criticize. We've already talked about the timeout that a lot of you think he should have called when that run was going on with Denver. I have been vocal about Coach Brown not adjusting enough to my liking in the past. But last night was clear as day. The Kings came out slow. They came out ill-prepared. And it seems like the game plan was right there for them. They knew what to expect, and they still let Denver just knock them in the jaw. I don't know if this team was down, if this team felt like, oh, well, we don't have Keegan. We don't have Kevin. So, it's going to be, if we lose, it's understandable. It's going to be really tough to win this one. We'll just go out there and see what happens. But, that first quarter was really lackluster, very lackluster. And you look at, they only scored 21 points. They're now 20 at the end of the first quarter. And then what happens in the second quarter? 47 freaking points. 47 points in the second quarter for the Kings. Massive quarter. You know what it was spurred by? By Colby Jones and Keon Ellis. Colby Jones did not score a point last night, yet he was and I'm not a big person in this stat category. Dennis, don't call me a hypocrite, but Colby was a +6 for the game last night. If you look at his stat line, it does no justice for what he did for that team last night. And Colby's a guy that through training camp looked like he had regressed. And then the G League season started and he was playing well in Stockton. He's worked his way. He's kind of fallen into some opportunities with this team because of injuries. And he's made the most out of them. In fact, we listened to Coach Brown yesterday talk about how he determines playing time when he is going off of a by committee approach with the bench, and it's games. And Coach, over the last 10 days, as the Kings have been winning, has used Colby Jones in very minor roles. He'll bring Colby in for, I don't know, maybe 2 to 3 minutes. I believe it was in Memphis where he brought Colby in, and Colby played a ton in the second half because Colby played really well, spurred the comeback defensively for the Kings, even though they ended up losing that game. So Colby has been working his way up to a moment last night, and Colby and Keon together raised absolute hell in the Denver backcourt. Denver's game got so scattered. It got so fragmented. Like I said at the top of the show, you're like watching the game doing this because that's what it was. Balls going everywhere, deflections everywhere. Keon Ellis had 5 blocks last night. He tied a career high in blocks. Colby was deflecting balls left and right. There was 2 times in the second half that Colby got steals or was part of a steal, and it should have been a take foul. And the refs didn't call it, probably because Colby, newer in the league, second year, you don't usually get some of those calls, but those were blatant. There was nobody in front of Colby. Those were open path fouls, or as they call it, take fouls now. But Colby played deep into the second half. And in fact, you saw when Colby and Keon was on the floor towards the end, but when Colby came out of the game, that's when Denver went on their run. That's when that pick and roll between Jokic and Murray became such a damn problem. So credit Colby Jones, credit Keon Ellis. That was incredible. If those 2 guys didn't come in and do what they did, that offensive run, that 47-point quarter does not happen. Does not happen. And give the Kings credit here, too. The third quarter was excellent. They came out of the locker room and they were executing left and freaking right. But in the last, 5 minutes of the game, it all falls apart. You look at the stats for the Kings. You could say the 3-pointers, a little bit of a problem. So we'll go down it here in a second. We'll talk some more about it. Let's go to the phones first. Let's bring Jay in. Jay, what's up today, bud?
What's going on? How you doing?
Good. How you doing, brother?
Good. Did you end up watching those last 5 minutes of the game?
I did.
What's your thoughts on that? The timeout situation?
It should. I would have liked a timeout. Yes.
Okay. Do you recall where you would have preferred it to be? Would it have been, I guess, after Aaron Gordon hit that 3 and now you go down by, I think, a point or something like that?
I would have preferred it probably after the 3. It would have been the 3.
And that led to the Sabonis turnover.
You called the timeout there, and then you draw up a play. And I know the Kings ended up getting a 3 there, but I would have liked more. I would have wanted to break up Denver's run a little bit, and I would have even thought of flashing a little bit of zone defense at them as well, just as Denver was doing to the Kings. But yeah, you and AB were spot on about that.
Yeah, I was actually on FaceTime with my friend who was watching the game too, and I used to coach with him too at the community league, and I'm sitting here yelling at the TV. And I think we were down by 4, so it was a few possessions before the Aaron Gordon 3, and I was like, "You need to call a timeout because you need to put what we have DeMar DeRozan for, which is you need to stop the fire. Like you need a bucket here." So it might have been a little early at around, I think it was like 3.5 minutes, maybe something around there. But I'm trying to give the guys a breather. Obviously, these guys are playing 40 minutes, your starters. So your shooting percentage statistically is going to go down when you're fatigued that late in the game. And obviously, you're going to be more turnover prone being fatigued, but mainly to put a stop to the fire and then hopefully get a secure bucket or have a higher, I look at it like from a percentage chance. Like, do we have a higher percentage of getting 2 points after this timeout versus not calling it. And I would assume that you would have a higher chance after getting a breather and actually drawing up a play out there. I think when Mike did call a timeout, or you know what? I believe it was, I don't know if it was, I had an issue with the 8-second timeout, believe it or not, when he wanted to advance the ball. And normally I would be for that timeout. I would be like, yeah, call it. But this game, as you said, Denver in transition was discombobulated.
Yeah.
I trust my guys to go out there. And I'm that guy that's going to, I guess you could say, what is it? Die by your sword or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I didn't have as much of an issue with that, but I do feel like I feel strongly, I should say, about us being able to push the ball up the floor with 8 seconds and have Denver kind of scramble. And hopefully you can find a mismatch within that. I don't know how you feel about that.
You know, Jay, you bring up a decent point from this sense, and I actually didn't think about that at all because Denver was mixing in that zone defense.
Yeah.
Calling that timeout allows Denver to set their defense. I look, we could nitpick these little things.
That's not going to obviously
all
dictate
day
if we make it or make the shot. Or
the bottom line is coach calls the timeout. Denver sets their defense, but the Kings still got a good look. DeMar just mishandled the basketball. And even off of that, he had a good look fading away.
He did. That's the shot he takes. You know, obviously it was a little bit rushed, you know, knowing his game. When he does do his fadeaway,
yes, it was a little bit. Yeah.
He sets it up how he wants and he shoots it when he wants. Obviously, you're in a time crunch and you got to get a shot off. So, but he fumbled it. Cool. I mean, that is what it is. I was just happy to see he had a decent shot, knowing he's comfortable taking shots like that. Obviously, he's, you know, and he missed it.
Well, here's the other thing. Sabonis could have taken that shot too.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if
he didn't have to pass that ball. That was a good look.
It was a great look, you know. I really feel like Sabonis didn't have to pass it, like you said, but also Fox necessarily didn't have to pass it. If Sabonis ended up like picking and popping rather than like a picking and cutting down the paint.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know who was guarding Fox, but obviously Jamal Murray's not staying in front of him, especially this late in the game. I do like Sabonis being unselfish in that situation because obviously Denver knows that they need to protect the cup. And you could see 3 guys and all their guys, their big guys, Aaron Gordon and Jokic down there crashing to the rim. So I do think Sabonis did a good job kicking it. I don't know if DeMar was ready for it. He did cut. I mean, he cut. So I would assume that was drawn up.
Yeah, they were running, what it looked like is they were running a really similar action to what they were running similar to what happened the possession before where DeMar got it in the corner and drove all the way. By the way, I don't know. That was like angels in the outfield picking up DeMar DeRozan and taking him for the dunk. I was shocked that he dunked it that well.
Yes, I think that was his 3rd or 4th dunk this year.
Yeah. I loved the throwdown, but I think they were looking for that short corner action again. And, you know, he comes from that corner, same way that the Kings were not checking the back cuts. Denver was allowing the Kings to get some back cuts there in that second half. And so
I think they should work that in a lot more, especially on a zone. If you notice, I know you watch a lot of basketball. In college, they do a lot of 2-3 zone.
Yeah.
More than they do man.
Yeah.
Most of the time. That is like a 2-3 zone action, the baseline cutter.
Yep.
Normally, you'll have someone in the high post, and then you'll have 3 people on the perimeter. So a center perimeter, not a center, someone in front of the basket like Fox in the center. And then you have 2 wings, and normally you'll have a guy cutting back and forth on the baseline.
Yep.
And I think they made that adjustment when they saw Denver playing the zone.
You know, this is a great point by Ryan as he put that in. I'm looking down. So for those that don't know, if you're new to the show, I track every shot. I'm looking down at my track sheet And Ryan's exactly right. So after the timeout, 117-109, Kings are up. Both teams miss a shot. Denver misses one. The Kings get a 2. Denver gets to the free throw line. The Kings miss a 3. And from there, this is what Denver does to end the game. They go triple, free throw, 2, triple, or excuse me. Let me start that over. Free throw, triple, free throws, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, and 2. The Kings didn't get a single stop for like 7 possessions. Ryan's spot freaking on, Jay.
Well, to Ryan's point, well, both Ryan's points, yours and his, that also goes back to that timeout situation. These guys are 40 minutes, and not only did they not get those stops, they also missed a couple of shots on the run, right? I think I remember yesterday you mentioned how they missed a few shots in a row. That's not because they suck or those weren't good looks. They were great looks. You said they were pretty good looks. These guys are fatigued. These guys are humans. But maybe I look too deep into that. But you get 3 days off, and hopefully I think they'll have a different energy. Hopefully, my girlfriend is a very loyal Laker fan, very loyal, and so on Thursday, I don't know about that. I did want to mention too really quickly. Draymond Green just dropped a podcast with De'Aaron Fox.
I saw that, yeah.
And his last topic of the podcast was his contract extension. Now, me personally, I think Fox, and he addressed it in the podcast, he loves Sacramento. If he had it his way, he would, retire here and, play in one place his whole career.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about the money for Fox. Apparently, he has not one Christmas tree, not 2, but 5, and a foyer in his house. So it's not about the money for Fox. It's about he wants to be competitive and he wants to win.
Yeah.
And he said that in the podcast.
Yeah.
And I do think as of right now, getting DeMar DeRozan says that, you want to compete. You're not just here to lollygag and make money and be a part of the basketball business. But I want to get your take on, because we've talked about adjustments and trades and how you've heard that the Kings aren't looking to make moves, and then how I'm hearing they're looking to make moves, and it's just a whole bunch of smoke and mirrors.
It's not that I'm hearing that they're not looking to make moves, but they're not looking to move a core piece of this team. They're looking to do something on the peripheral. They still feel very confident in the core that they have. That doesn't mean that you can't bring in Dorian Finney-Smith. That doesn't mean that you can't bring in somebody along those lines, but they're not looking at like trading Keegan right now. They're not looking.
Yeah, not right now. I would agree with that move for sure.
And quite honestly, this team doesn't really have a lot of assets to deal with. I mean, if you break it down, anybody, this whole report that came out, and I look at it, and I'm not trying to criticize anybody on YouTube. I respect anybody that takes the time to put themselves out there and create content. But, like when you put out these 8-minute videos saying, oh, the Kings looking to make these trades, and guess who's on the block? Kevin Huerter and Trey Lyles. Those two guys have been on the trading block going back to the draft. Nothing's changed. It's just what team is going to trade for straight up Kevin Huerter? What team's going to trade for straight up Trey Lyles? Not many. So what's the main course going to be? Those guys are the sides. They're the fries. They're the potato salad. What's the main course? And if you look at that, Jay, you've only got a couple options. You've got Keegan Murray,
Devin Carter.
And
teams might not really, they haven't seen him play at this level yet. So you're not really sure who really wants Devin Carter, but
yep. And you've got De'Aaron Fox.
He's not going anywhere.
Those are your 3. That's the 3 people that I think, and I am hearing teams would be interested in.
And probably to your point, Monk.
And to your point, really quick about Devin Carter, that's the big question. It's what's his value? Because there were a lot of teams that thought highly of him in the draft, but They seem to know a little bit more. Well, I'm not going to say they seem to know more about the shoulder. Maybe they were more concerned about the shoulder than Sacramento was. So,
Well, I mean, you see Donovan Clingan go pretty high. I think he was like 4, and you
Klingon
see
was 8.
oh,
Or
8.
no, yeah, he went
Edie
to.
was 8,
Oh
right?
wait, no, he was 7, I believe. He was 7, and then Edie was 8. Yeah.
You know, and I think Clingan was actually projected to go actually slightly higher, but I know Edie was not projected to go that high. So it could just be everybody's draft board is different.
Oh, this last draft was, we were saying it when we were breaking it down. It was 100% a subjective draft. There was no consensus on who the best player was. It was a draft where teams basically picked a combination of need and who they thought they could develop the best within their system. And so
Exactly.
that's why it was all over the damn map. And so you go back at what the Kings did. I think the frustration is if they have Devin Carter as best available, then he's best available, and we can Monday morning quarterback all day long and say, well, looks like Dalton Connect might be the best available and the position of need. You know, I think Kings fans, it doesn't matter if it was Devin Carter or any other guard, a guard at that position. Kings fans have guard fatigue when it comes.
Yeah, and that's why he would have to, like you said, mentioned in one of those trade discussions. Him, Keegan, and I would assume Monk would be asked about. I don't think the Kings are going to move Monk, especially locking him up.
I don't think they're moving Monk either.
But it would be those guys that would kind of get, teams excited. Younger guys with high upside. That and picks. And if you're trying to win with Fox and you want him to be here and you want to keep most of your core intact, like let's say, for example, Keegan, Grant says I might overvalue picks, which is probably true. But, I mean, if they're overvalued, you might as well toss them in there.
Okay, so here's the thing about picks. I think that, and we saw over the summer that to get rid of salary, and this is completely because of the new CBA. The new CBA is a monster compared to the previous one for the GMs. And in fact, when they did the GM survey at the start of the season, the number one thing the GMs would change about the NBA is the CBA. And we're only in year 1 of it. So to get salary off your books, you had to give up a second round pick. Now, this is going to be the first trade deadline we've had with this CBA. So I think everybody, to a degree, is waiting to see what the market is going to demand when it comes to picks, because with the CBA, there's a premium on picks in having a guy for 4 years at a fixed rate of pay that you can develop within your system. So is that going to be more valuable? Is a pick going to be worth more than it was 2 years ago? Does that mean it's going to be less valuable? I think everybody's kind of waiting to see that first shoe drop is when you get rid of, like the Rudy Gobert trade. That was a freaking outlier. I don't think you're going to see anything like that. But if we see Brandon Ingram move, if you see Zach LaVine move, that's going to set the market. That's going to tell you how the rest of the league is valuing picks.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, the New York Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets, for Mikal Bridges, I think it was 4.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
That was insane to me. But yeah, I mean, I'm more willing to part with picks now with also, I think the CBA, you have to have, you're not allowed to trade picks in consecutive years. You have to take a pick every other year.
Correct.
So by default, by force, you still have picks, right? It's not like, oh, well, I want all your picks until 2030. Okay, well, you can have these 3 or 4 picks, whatever the math is on it, because you're still having to pick. You're not even allowed to swap those picks. If I'm not mistaken, I tried to do it and it wouldn't let me.
So go listen to Bobby Marks He does. He used to be in the front office, I believe for Brooklyn. He does an excellent job of explaining all that. In fact, everybody in Sacramento last year was like, "Well, you can't trade a pick," and Bobby did all the math and he broke it
Right.
down because everybody that doesn't realize this, even the GMs, they have people on staff
Yeah,
that
yeah.
specialize in this stuff because it's so freaking complicated.
It is.
So I don't know the answer to the Kings. I mean, are they willing to part with picks? The bottom line is if you're a good team and you think that you're going places, then your pick really shouldn't be that valuable because your pick's going to be
Exactly.
out
If
of
you're
the
not a top 10
lottery.
pick, right?
It's going to be, towards the back of the draft. So,
But
will the
that's
Kings part with some? Who knows?
that's both sides because
Yeah.
it's like we're good. We can do without this pick to get something better, but the other team knows that if you're trading this pick, it's probably going to be a 25th pick. So how does that make them better? You know what I mean?
Well, and it also goes into you have to look at the other team's payroll. If they have a couple of big stars already on the team that put them into the first apron, then that team has to fill out their bench.
That's true. Yeah.
With
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
a lower payroll, and having a late first round pick on a set salary scale helps do that. So there's a lot of stuff in between. Jay, thanks for the call, brother.
Yeah, thank you.
Appreciate you. Jay knocking it out. Jay was talking about the Lakers coming into town. Yeah, we still got some Jerry Jones coming up. Listen to Jerry say Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles.
The one and only Jerry Jones. Yes, we've got some audio from him. How willing is the front office to trade picks? Look, Jeff, I don't know. I really don't because, and I mean this with all sincerity and respect, Monty and his team keep things extremely close to the vest. I mean, very close to the vest. A lot of time, information that comes out about Sacramento's front office comes out from other front offices if you have a source somewhere there. And I like it that way. I think that that's better rather than being, open-lipped and making all of your intentions known to the media before you make a move. And look, the media can be a good thing and a bad thing. Mike Brown tried his contract extension in the media and it worked. It got him that extension. But when it comes to picks, look, I think Monty McNair, and here's the bottom line. We'll get into this more on the other side. Monty, in some ways, has put himself behind an 8-ball indirectly. Monty, if you had to use an analogy for Monty, he's kind of like the game of baseball right now. If you look at his tenure here in Sacramento, and I say that because watching baseball, it's either a strikeout or a home run, right? That's where the game's at. Hitting for singles and doubles and triples, it just doesn't happen as much anymore. And Monty has either hit a home run or he struck out during his tenure here. The Halliburton trade worked out for both teams. Getting Sabonis. The bottom line is Fox had not been to the playoffs. Sabonis is here for a year and some change, and the Kings make the playoffs. And I get that's both of them. So it worked out for the Kings. You break the playoff drought. So I would categorize that as a strong, closer to a home run than a double for the Kings because you do break the playoff drought. But where Monty, in my opinion, has faltered or not kept up is the singles. It's the doubles. It's the progress. It's stealing a base here and there. At best, you could say Monty has stolen a base with things like getting your trade exception to Brooklyn that you would have lost and getting Kessler Edwards in return. The last trade deadline, trading somebody, I forget who it was off the top of my head, but the difference in the money with that trade basically paid for Keon Ellis's elevation to a full-time roster spot. So Monty's been good with those tiny little things, but if we go back to the trade deadline in 22-23, I don't fault Monty for not making a move during that deadline. That's the best Sacramento Kings team that we have had in town since the early 2000s. So not making a move and rolling with that team, I get it. Now, let me give you the other side of that. You were ahead of the Lakers at the trade deadline. The Lakers made a couple of small moves, right? They made a couple of small moves, relatively speaking. They get D'Angelo Russell. They get Rui Hachimura. Don't have to give up much. Where did the Lakers end up that year? The Western Conference Finals. The Western Conference Finals. Okay, so I'm not going to put that on money, that trade deadline. Let's move to that offseason. What happens? The Kings re-sign HB, right? You re-sign Trey Lyles, and then you had some extra money to work with. What did the Kings decide to do? They extended Domas. I think extending Domas and not using that money hurt the team more than it helped the team. Because there was no hint that Domas wasn't going to want to stay in Sacramento. So I feel like running it back, and I know there were some other, peripheral moves, that set the Kings behind a little bit. So there's a strikeout to me. Let's go to the trade deadline last year. The Kings did some small stuff, which in exchange, I think it was, let's take a step back. The draft with Colby Jones, pretty good move. To me, that's a single or a double, where the Kings traded back to the second round. They got Rashawn Holmes' salary off the books, and then you got Colby on a second round set contract. That's a single. Okay, great. It was a solid move, but nothing that changes the way this team is going to move up the West, right? Now let's go to the trade deadline last season. The Kings were ahead of the Mavericks. What did the Mavericks do? Mavericks made a couple of moves, right? Where did the Mavericks end up? The NBA freaking finals. Where were the Kings? The play-in. So what I'm saying is, as we sit here today, we can't blame where this bench is at on just this offseason. Where this bench is at right now is the culmination of falling behind the curve with the singles, with the doubles. The Kings have, again, not hit enough of those, either home runs or strikeouts. So that's where the bench is today. Now, Monty's in a position where the Kings have to really make a difference here. What are you going to do? See, I disagree. Extending Domas was a message to help retain Fox. I disagree. If it was a message to help retain Fox, why wouldn't Fox have signed the extension last season? Why wouldn't he have signed it this season? I said it in June. I put it out on the X. I said De'Aaron is not going to sign an extension. One, because he's betting on himself to get the Supermax, but also he wanted to see how the roster develops. He wants to win, what Jay just said and what he said in the podcast. Then before the season, or right after the season, De'Aaron did an interview with The Athletic, and he said the same thing. So that information has been out there. So if that was a message to De'Aaron would be re-signed. It's a non-issue, or at least the rhetoric would be, I want to get a Supermax. It wouldn't be, I want to see how this roster improves, right? In fact, couldn't there be an argument that it was the wrong message to send to De'Aaron Fox? De'Aaron's making 34.8 this year. Next year, De'Aaron's making 47, basically 47.1. I'm rounding up there. Or excuse me, 37.1 he's making next year. Domantas Sabonis this year is making 40.5. In 25-26, he's going to make 43.6. In 26-27, he's going to make 46.7. And in 27-28, he's going to make 49.9. I get that you have to factor into inflation and when De'Aaron signed his contract relative to where Domas signed his extension. But couldn't there be, and I'm not making this argument, but couldn't there be an argument that this is now Domas's team and not De'Aaron's team? If you're just looking at the numbers and you're looking at the transaction, De'Aaron's the one where it falls on his shoulders. When this team doesn't fail, or this team fails and this team doesn't win, it's De'Aaron Fox that takes the blame. Vivek Ranadive tells the story all the time. I've got this beautiful car, young man, and I want to hand the keys to you. Well, De'Aaron takes the fault, but he doesn't necessarily get the love. And the question is, maybe it's not his team if you look at it by the numbers. And here's the other thing that extension did with Domas. Domas deserves every penny of what he is getting. He plays harder than anybody I can remember in a Sacramento Kings uniform over the years. He's durable as hell. He's got this hinge, this twitch of really insecurity. And I mean that in a positive way, not a negative way. He doesn't take for granted the fact that he's in the NBA. He doesn't take his spot for granted. He's always worried about somebody taking his spot. And to have that hunger still with where he's at, I see it as a good thing, right? But Domas is a specialized product. Domas is like a Tesla 10 years ago, before all the superchargers were around. And hear me out with this analogy really quick. Because Domas is not a piece that you can just plug and play into a franchise. You've got to play a certain style for Domas to work. And we've seen that here in Sacktown, right? So he's worth the 40.5 he's making this year. He'll be worth the 43.6 he'll be making next year, but I don't think he is worth 43.6 to another team in the NBA, or I should say to the majority of the other teams in the NBA. I think that's a contract that's probably untradeable. And I'm not putting Domas down at all. I just don't think that there is much you can do with that contract. I think that contract is closer to a Levine situation than it is a tradable asset. And I could be wrong. But with the new CBA, I don't know if there's a team that's going to say, let's build around Domas. Because for as much good as there is, and the good outweighs the bad with Domas, a lot of the NBA with the game, the way the game is played today, is going to look at the bad things and say, yeah, it just doesn't fit. The size, yeah, it's not there. Well, he works because it's kind of a unicorn of a system, right? And he's not going to be able to do that in our system. He's not going to be the one that's going to be administrating. So I kind of put Domas on an island. I don't think Domas is a tradable asset. So you go back to Foxy, you go back to Keegan, and you go back to Devin Carter. Those are your tradable assets. But the point of what I'm saying is they're in this position now because of an accumulation of decisions, not just this offseason with the bench. So anyways, getting back to the chat. We'll get to those here in just a few minutes. Thanks for being with me here today on the Kings Court. Happy you are here. Don't forget, Napes is going to be here later tonight, 8 o'clock. I may or may not join him. One thing is for sure, he will be here taking your calls, talking Kings, talking NFL, hell, talking college football playoffs, whatever you want to talk about. Grant's here for it. Make sure you join him right here on the channel, 8 p.m. It will be a great show. Speaking of great. How about Bennett's? I love doing our shows and hearing all your stories about going in and supporting Bennett's and what you had to eat and how much you enjoyed it. Keep them coming. We greatly appreciate it. I know Brian Bennett appreciates it as well. Huge thanks to them. That is Bennett's West Side Grill, the third location here in the greater Sacramento area in Rockland, located in the Blue Oaks Town Center. Fine cuts of seafood and steak, prime cuts of seafood and steak. Also, great other options centered around those entrees. I absolutely love the steak and frites. The meatloaf, some of you have discovered off the damn charts. The steak Cobb salad to die for. I could keep going. I don't want to keep making myself hungry. So get to bennettsrestaurants.com, check out the full menu, and then also don't forget to check out the specials. They've got something going on damn near every single day. Today, happy hour, 2 to 6 o'clock. There's sips and tastes. This weekend brunch. They've got a nice brunch special as well. And weekend prime rib. Yeah, do me a favor. Go check it all out at bennettsrestaurants.com. You can make reservations there. You can put in your to-go orders there. Also, if you got a group getting together, holiday party, office party, put a reservation in for one of their private dining rooms. They're awesome. Such cool ambiance, same great food, same great service. Huge thanks to Bennett's for sponsoring today's episode of the King's Court. Go to bennettsrestaurants.com for more information. And seriously, hit us up. If you go to Bennett's, hit me on X, put it in here. We'll read it. We'll send it to Brian. Also, if you send it to me on X, I will retweet it. I'm sure Grant will as well. Brian and the team love seeing that. And thank you all for a lot of the support that you've shown this channel. If you're not subscribed already, make sure that you hit that subscribe button. We would love to have you a part of the If You Don't Like That family. And I'm going to ask this one favor of you. It's the holidays, and everybody's kind of in a given mood and thinking about others. And we so appreciate the super chats. We appreciate every comment. We appreciate every view, every like, every retweet. Means the world to us. We do this for all of you. This is why we do it. We try to give you the most grounded and up-to-date Kings analysis, Kings information coverage here in town. Both myself, Grant, Jerry, and I am just going to ask, if you know somebody that likes the NBA, if you know a Kings fan, share the channel with them. Let them know about us. You would be surprised at how many people still are learning that Grant's channel's here. They're learning about my show. They're learning about Jerry Reynolds being on this channel. Share the channel with them. It would mean a great deal to us during this holiday season. That would be the best present you could give to us. So think about that. Would really, really appreciate it. I know Grant would as well. A lot of discussion about the Kings today. A ton of discussion about the Kings. I want to get to these comments because I think I stimulated the chat a little bit about the situation that the Kings are in and talking about what's next with trades and such. We'll also get to the phones here in a few minutes. I do, because we hit this every week. And by the way, we're not going to be able to hit it today because we're running out of time. But I want to talk about, well, we will hit this. The NBA All-Star Game has a new format that was officially announced. Here's the question, and we're not going to do it today, but we're going to do it on Thursday. I want to leave this question with all of you because I know a large contingent of the Kings fan base is also 49ers fans. The question that I have for all of you, and even if you're not a 49ers fan, we'll talk about it on Thursday. Think about it. Think about your answer. Are the 49ers the new Buffalo Bills from back in the 80s, in the 90s, that win NFC championships, get to Super Bowls, but can't win the Super Bowl, can't win the big one? It seems like it's this generation's Buffalo Bills. And there's a bigger conversation we can have around that. But think about that. Chew on that. I want to have that in the back of your head. Baki, I'll be coming to you in a second. Jerry Jones, always known for a good one-liner or two. He does his weekly hit on 105.3 in Dallas, and usually we play audio of that. But he was actually pretty damn grounded today. There wasn't much to really knock him for. So I figured we would play some of Jerry's greatest hits. They're pretty quick, but they're pretty funny and out there. Look at this. Look at how Jerry, we already said, or we played the Los Angeles one. How about this one?
Los Angeles.
Los Angeles. So we played this one. How about Jerry here?
I don't have time to have a bad time. It isn't on my schedule.
It isn't on my schedule.
I don't have time to have a bad time. It isn't on my schedule.
Joe Theismann thinks Jerry sounds good.
Struggling.
What's going on, Jerry? Your schedule.
I don't have time to have a bad time. It isn't on my schedule.
You gotta love Jera. How about this one?
I am a monkey fan. I can stand in a zoo and look at them all day long and die laughing. And my dad was in the wild animal business and had over 5,000 wild animals. And he always was, no matter what, he would hand somebody a card and said, be sure and come out and visit my monkeys.
Jerry Jones, one of a freaking kind. How about the time that he tried to relate re-signing players and extending contracts to having a limb cut off?
If you were a driver of a car and you had a wreck and your hand was almost severed off, but you didn't understand your anatomy, you look down, you're spurting blood, you open the door and run to the woods and either die bleeding to death or shocked. The educated man looks down, knows his anatomy, squeezes, and knows his best chance is to wait for help. That's because he's been there a lot and done that. And so I'm waiting, I'm squeezing and waiting for help.
Jerry is waiting and squeezing for help. We got one more to wrap it up.
I am a monkey fan.
Oh, we already played that one. We got one more. Here's Jera. One last time.
Have a quarterback that can drive the ball downfield. This quarterback, Wheaton, can drive the ball downfield. Now, he's a thing of beauty on throwing a football. His passing motion or his arm, frankly, you won't see a more gifted passer. If he can basically prepare, be the starting quarterback, and come in and execute and keep his head right, then I feel good about Wheaton.
Brandon Whedon, that did not age well. Baki, welcome in today, buddy.
Hey, yo. What's up?
What's up?
For me, interesting to speak about, conversation. Would you build around Domas or would you build around Fox's? Actually, question of the mentality, because we can talk hours about those players in NBA. I mean, you have maybe 300 players in NBA, which are really great quality players. Some of them are exceptional. Some of them are all-stars. But, somebody will say, who's better player, Fox or Sabonis? Or they play other positions, okay, different positions, but who would you pick? Who would I pick? Who would somebody else? So the point is, for me, the crucial thing is that mentality stuff. Sabonis was born and raised by his father and that European mentality, which is very different from the, especially in NBA, from the mentality of all those NBA players, because you can put some examples on the field. night by night, you can see. Let's take Monk or Fox when the score is tie or the game is in crucial moments. You will have Fox doing some fancy things. Monk will do the same things. They're gonna show us what can do with the ball. They can show us some fancy stuff, but you cannot see that from Sabonis. From Sabonis, you're gonna get strictly professional business and only basketball thinking things on the court. Uh, somebody, if there is somebody left who is asking why Nikola Jokic is MVP. Nikola Jokic is MVP not only because of his talent, but it's his dedication to the sport. He's not interested in buying on wearing some crazy suits, how he's going to look like on the court when he's arriving in an arena, how he's going to look on the court, what he's going to do on the court. Is that move fancy or not? He's only just about basketball and only just about business. And the same thing is with Sabonis. That's why you have the players like Djokovic, like Jokic, like those extra professionals who are interesting only in the sport where they are so successful in. So that's something which can tell you a lot around which player you should build your team. And definitely this team is Sabonis plus, not Fox and plus all the others. So I don't have, I mean, great talent. I'm always gonna say Fox is great talent. I will never leave that guy. I mean, I never let him to leave the Sacramento. And the same is with Monk. The guy is maybe highest energy in the NBA players overall. A lot of players with the same quality. I mean, DeRozan is one of the all-star players, but Sabonis is something else. And I think you get my point. This guy is, you see, after all those years, he's still improving his game. Take a look at his shots behind the line and what Mark say middies. I'm just kidding with this.
Don't
I'm
start
just kidding.
me.
I know you're gonna throw up
Don't
hearing
start me.
something like that.
Don't start
Listen,
me.
whenever I hear that, you jump out of my in front of my face, and I
Yeah.
say, "Oh, don't say that anymore.
Yes.
You don't know who is listening."
Oh my gosh.
So this is crazy. Okay, I'm not gonna go in that street. So you got my point.
I got
Sabonis
you.
is something else because the guy is still improving. Look at the shots. Look at those. Okay, we already forgot double double. Double double is now for him like a good afternoon.
Yep.
So now we are heading to triple doubles, to 30 and plus points. Very mature play from Sabonis and real leadership, and you can rely, and you can notice that he's not doing all those mistakes like that, like before, like the season. I mean, our score is now what 3 games behind 50. But never mind. I still believe this team can rise. The Kings are not the team you can beat easily. There is no way you can crush that team. You can maybe win like this or like that. But for me, still the sun is still shining. So only have to. Somebody says, okay. Till the point we figure it out is going to be of 50 games or more. I don't
No.
see the thing like that. Okay, we got that streak from 3-4. Okay, Kings played a great game last night. Really great game. You cannot find too much. Even those I said you heard last night. I said with Grant and you in the show. Uh, all the actions, all the plays were really great. Even the last one, okay, he dropped the ball, so it happens to the players. We cannot be mad at DeRozan. He's a big star. I mean, playing. You can rarely see plays like that in the last seconds when you have something drawn and uh, did it was a perfection play. So he just dropped the ball. If not, the game will be decided. And I will go back to your point. I mean, how many missed shots, and it's not only missed shots. It's crazy how open they are.
Yep, I
How
agree.
open they are in the game. So we can watch the game again, and we can count, and we can write down on the paper, and you will be surprised how crazy how many shots they missed. So a lot of positives generally in the Kings game, and a lot of those things are coming directly from Sabonis, and that's my point.
Good job. Yep. I appreciate it,
if you
Baki.
if you're gonna pick it, okay.
Good job, buddy. Tell Tedora hi for me.
She was crying to get here, but it was too late. I said,
All right, well, tell her I said hi, and she's still in the opening with the holy moly.
school's number one.
Amen.
Okay, we're
School first.
gonna hear from her at the weekend.
Cool. All right, that's Baki. Good job, dude. Couple thoughts really quick there. Baki is right. The Kings played incredibly hard last night. What they didn't do is play incredibly smart. And I saw BJ put a comment in, not the first quarter. As for Baki's points about Sabonis, and I'm going to get to your comments, then we're going to talk All-Star game, and then we'll wrap up. Al, I saw that you called. I don't know why my thing is not ringing. I can call you back in a second if you'd like. But to Baki's point, Sabonis, you know what you're going to get. I agree. I think Sabonis has regressed this year in some areas. I think his decision making has not been as good this year, and the numbers bear that out. And he's had the ball less in his hands, so that's something that he still needs to improve on. The 3-point shot has been great; it's been refreshing. I still think the hesitation is there a little more than I'd like to see. But here's the big question that I've asked going back to last year: do Fox and Sabonis make each other better? I've asked that to all of you. I've asked that to people around the team, people that cover the team, and everybody has told me that Sabonis makes Fox better. But does Fox make Sabonis better? And it's a bigger conversation than we can handle today. And I think the answer is actually no. I don't think that Fox makes Sabonis better. And here is the best example I can give you. And I mean that with no disrespect to De'Aaron Fox. There are things that De'Aaron does that opens Sabonis up. But when I say, does he make Sabonis better? Look at Exhibit A. Look at how Malik Monk plays with Sabonis. Look at the pick and roll. So that question may change. The answer to that for me may actually be yes, as this season moves along and we continue to see more pick and roll out there. I want to get to the comments because a ton of them were coming in about the bigger discussion that we were having. Want to get to all of your points. You have to give the Kings credit when it comes to Keon Ellis. And to a degree, not even close yet, Isaac Jones. What the Kings have done in identifying undrafted talent and developing it in the G League system, and what the guys down in the G League and gals are doing down in the G League, it's one of the best collaborative systems in the G League and NBA. They have done an excellent job to take two guys that were undrafted, that were two ways. One is now a full-time guy getting significant minutes in Keon, and now possibly doing the same with Isaac Jones. That's a big credit to the Kings. Now, the other side of that could be, well, the Kings are being forced to do that because they have not kept up with the Western Conference. So I see both sides of it. Jay, reluctant to add Keon to a trade package. Well, look, everybody that's been saying, get Keegan out of town, you just got a dose of medicine last night. That's what happens when you don't have Keegan Murray on the court. I said it. I've said it all this year. I said it last year. Keegan Murray is the defensive leader of this team. This team's defense turns into a mess if Keegan Murray is not on this team. And you saw it last night for a lot of the game. Vivek medals, he always will. Grant talks about that. He has given Monty a little bit more autonomy to operate, but Vivek's going to be Vivek. Vivek's going to do Vivek things. Let's just put it that way. Let's say Furious, what's up, my man? Al Bundy for president? Al Bundy's running for president? We just had an election. The hell? Breaking your heart since 1985 with a little love in 2000. Otherwise, every year stinks. Poor G-Man. G-Man's a freaking gem. G-Man is a gem. What you're saying right now is why I think the Kings end up trading Fox. I think they try to build this team around Sabonis, Monk, Murray, and DeRozan. Here's what I know. I think De'Aaron, for the majority of this year, has played the best basketball of his career. I said it earlier in the season after he got the text message from Luke, after they did some extended film together, and Luke has challenged him, Luke Laux, to touch the paint. Luke would commonly send text messages to De'Aaron saying, hey, SGA touched the paint this many times tonight. I think you can do that too. Little things like that. Well, when De'Aaron finally took it to heart and made it a point this season, and I know in the offseason, and I reported this, I said he's having the best offseason that he has had in his career and his Sacramento career, both getting back to the controllables, working on those free throws, etc., but also working on using his biggest strength, his speed. But I know this. I don't want to lose De'Aaron Fox. I still believe in De'Aaron Fox. I think De'Aaron Fox brings a unique talent to this team. He can turn it on with very little notice. Sure, there's still areas that need to be addressed. You could say overall winning has not been great. You could then counter that with, well, look at who he's had to work with. Here's the bottom line. If De'Aaron Fox isn't in this team's long-term plans, or if the team doesn't think that they are in De'Aaron Fox's long-term plans, you can't let him walk for nothing. You cannot let this thing in Sacramento that they have going turn into a rebuild. Because there is a world out there where if you traded De'Aaron Fox and the timing was right, this is not a rebuild. It's a recalibration. But if you let De'Aaron Fox walk, or you wait till next year's trade deadline, you're looking at a rebuild. So that's the big decision that's looming large in Sacramento land. So as Jay said, De'Aaron did a podcast today. It doesn't sound like anything really new came out, but we'll see. I think we need to build around Domas and potentially trade Fox. So some people think that, let's see, True Center would complement Domas. Yep. Ian hopping in with some more on that. You're right. The 3-point shooting definitely helps with Domas. But again, here's the problem, Ian, the number. I just don't see teams paying $49 million in 27-28 for Domas. I don't, especially with the new CBA. If Domas is more credible on the perimeter, then you can, I don't, look, there's things you can do, but that's my point. He's not plug and play for a team. You got to switch things around, kind of like the Kings have had to adjust to DeMar DeRozan. Yes, Royal Rumble Fridays are always good, and horsing around with the NFL. Good segments on Friday if you are new around here. Haunted Horse and my 10-year-old son, Liam, who does not come on the program, but we record his picks. They make their football picks for the week. By the way, Haunted Horse won this week. Monty has to be on the phone making moves soon. We will see. Mark, he is 3 sheets to the win on some of those comments. Okay, you guys are doing your internal talk. Jerry needs his own reality show. I'm so with you. Oh, they announce it schedule. Baki talking culture. Yep. Not a rebuild, but a reload. Yeah, it's a recalibration. It is, depending on what you get. Patrick off the clock. Love it. What's up, dude? Hope you had a good work day. I can acknowledge that.
Acknowledge me.
Good job, Patrick. Don't forget, Grant's back tonight at 8 o'clock. All right, let's wrap up here. Let's run through a couple of things. Western Conference, as it sits right now. The Kings sitting in the 12th seed. Tonight, you have the NBA Cup final. Have you seen the plummeting ticket prices for this thing? What a failure for Adam Silver. Adam Silver is a drowning rat right now. And I mean that with all due respect. Ratings are down almost 10% on the NBA. No matter what Adam Silver does to try to get the style of basketball in the NBA to change, make it more relevant, make it more exciting, it never works. It's only for Adam Silver. This entire NBA Cup thing has been targeted at the global audience, not the domestic audience. Look at the style. Look at the flashier floors. People in Vegas couldn't care less about this thing. Anyways, the bigger point of what I'm trying to say here, respectfully, a drowning rat. Yes, he is. Look, last year's All-Star game was the low point for Adam Silver. Adam Silver rolled out the red carpet. Adam Silver put all of his chips that he had sitting in front of him, and he pushed them to the middle of the table with last year's All-Star game. We're going to do it in an NFL stadium. We're going to have an LED floor. Right? We're going to incorporate the WNBA to a degree. We're going to make this thing, we're bringing back the All-Star game. I am pulling the All-Star game back. I am all in. There's no way on a stage like this that the players are not going to come through for me. And what happened? It was an atrocious All-Star game. I mean, Adam Silver was sitting courtside for the All-Star game, and it felt like,
mommy, daddy button.
To the point that when the All-Star trophy was presented to the winning team, he was visibly dejected. He was audibly dejected. I don't have the audio right now, but it went something like this. I guess you won the most points, so you won. Here you go. That's what it sounded like. I'm not exaggerating, by the way. Well, I guess you scored the most points, so here you go. It was not.
Great success.
It was a complete disappointment. So what's Adam Silver do? And that's because of the style. The guys only care about the three ball. That's all they care about. It's the three ball. Players do not care about the All-Star game. I mean, what is the All-Star game? We know what the All-Star game is.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass. But they are who we thought they were, and we let them off the hook.
We know what the All-Star game is. It's just the guys going out and having fun. Adam, as much as you want this thing to be like it was back in the day, Jordan against Bird, Magic, guys caring, it was a different generation. It was a different style of basketball. And by the way, their pockets were not fat with money like they are now. Most of these All-Stars would rather have the time off than playing in the game. Although they do want the credit of being an all-star. So, Adam Silver has gone back to the drawing table, and we now have a new format for the 2025 NBA All-Star Game. Here's what it's going to be. It's going to be a mini tournament with 4 teams in 3 games. 24 NBA All-Star selections divided evenly into 3 8-player teams. Now, here's my first problem with it. Why in the hell in the NBA can you have a 15-man roster, but you only select 12 All-Stars from each conference? It's time to catch up with the times. You need to, especially if you are going to a format like this, you need to make it 15 on both teams, because inevitably there are all-stars that get snubbed. Domas got snubbed last year, big time. And by the way, Kings fans, the Kings don't have any all-stars as we sit today.
Damn!
The all-star selections are as much about what your team is doing as they are what you are doing in this time and age. So that's the first problem I see with it. But you're going to have 24 NBA All-Stars divided into 8-man teams. The 4th team is the Castrol Rising Stars champion. So now you are going to snub what could have been 6 additional All-Stars. You could have had 6 additional NBA All-Stars. You're going to snub them, and you're going to fill it with the winners of the Rising Stars game. All right. Honorary team general managers. TNT analysis. Charles Barkley. Love it. Shaq, Kenny, and Candace Parker. Barkley, O'Neal, and Smith draft their team rosters from a pool of 24 NBA All-Star selections. Parker is GM of the Castrol Rising Stars champion. I can hear it now. Why is Candace not get to be a GM of one of the NBA teams? Can hear it now. 2 teams meet in one semifinal game. Game 1, and remaining 2 teams meet in other semifinal. Game 2. Winning team from Game 1 and Game 2 advance to face each other in the championship Game 3. Winner of each game is the first team to reach or surpass 40 points. That, ladies and gentlemen, is your new all-star format. So here's my take. And this kind of came out right before we came on. I know there's going to be some money involved in all this as well. Here's my take. If you're going to do this tournament style for the all-star game, turn everything into one night. Make Saturday, it needs to be a one-night event. Have the dunk contest, you can have the 3-point contest, and you mix these games in between. Done. 2 nights is too much. And in fact, if you asked me which night I would rather watch, it's always going to be Saturday night. And Saturday night is still getting a little bit old because of the dunk contest. You don't want stars to do it, or the stars don't want to do it. So that is your new format for the All-Star game. Crazy. It's not going to work, dude. Adam. And by the way, if you're the big 3 right now, like, how happy are you? You're like, oh, look, they're kind of like picking some stuff from us. You know, like, you're so happy about that. Like, Adam, do what you want. This isn't going to work. It's not going to work. Just because, and you're throwing in the Rising Stars winner. That to me is so bad. I think what they should do is they should add an additional 3 All-Stars from each conference. You add 3 All-Stars from each conference. You make it a pool of 30. And then you add in the MVP from each team in the Rising Stars game. 1 player from each of those 2 teams. So now you have your pool of 32. And now you avoid some of the snubs that we inevitably see every year. You make the All-Stars roster the exact same. The amount of All-Stars, the exact same as what an NBA roster would be. Done. Period. You're good. Nobody's going to argue with that. Adding 3 additional All-Stars from each conference does not water down the honor of being an All-Star. You're putting it at a 12-man roster for each team when NBA rosters are bigger. So that's my take on it. Players are still going to shoot threes. What do you think they're going to do? You think they're going to take this more serious? Adam Silver, are you trying to recreate Hoop It Up? Don't act like some of you didn't play in Hoop It Up. And don't act like some of you didn't create your own gear for Hoop It Up. And sure as hell don't act like some of you did not buy the $15 Gatorade bottle that you could use the entire weekend at Hoop It Up and fill it up with as much Gatorade as you want. I did all that stuff. Come on. What is this? Hoop It Up? Or is this the NBA All-Star game? Adam freaking Silver. Like,
this was brought to me by a mother of children.
Just doesn't make sense. Does not make sense. I got you, Johnny.
That don't make no sense.
You don't know what Hoop It Up is? Come on, Ian. You don't know what Hoop It Up is? Hoop It Up used to be this traveling 3-on-3 tournament. Was it 3-on-3 or 4-on-4? It was 3-on-3. It was a tournament that would go city to city to city. And Hoop It Up would put it on. And it was like the coolest thing. Like back in my day, that was like my elementary to middle school years. Getting to play and Hoop It Up, I looked forward to it every year. You got together with like your best 3. You got your team together and then you had 1 sub. It was a 3-on-3 tournament and you would have hundreds of teams playing in it. And wherever they held it, there would be hundreds of basketball hoops set up everywhere. Hoop It Up was the crap. I loved playing Hoop It Up as a kid. Almost as much as I loved ordering Pizza Hut when they had the street ball. Yes, I am that old school. Anyways, speaking of old school, the principal, the man around here, Grant Napier, he's here at 8 o'clock tonight. Make sure you join him. I am not sure if I will be with him tonight or not, but I can promise you he will be here talking Kings, talking NFL, talking the new all-star format, and whatever else y'all want to hit. So make sure you join him at 8. Man, fun show today. Long show. We went long. I appreciate all of you being here. Thank you so much for making it a great one. Don't forget, Grant back at 8. Please like and subscribe, retweet, whatever. It helps the algorithm for us. The King's Court is off tomorrow because we've got the Kings Roundtable, 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, and then Grant and Sean tomorrow. Sean Salisbury talking football at 3 o'clock. We will be back on the King's Court on Thursday, 2 p.m., getting you ready for the Kings and the Lakers. Man, fork in the road. That is going to be an important 2 games. Make sure, by the way, that you are also following the King's Court on X, which will get you to the Spotify Amazon, Apple Podcasts links for the King's Court. I drop premium audio over there for free that's outside of this show. So make sure that you are subscribed. I have not dropped any premium audio lately. I can promise you a premium show is coming in the next 48 hours. So make sure you search the King's Court with Rhino on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever. Join that community. A lot of good content up there already. You've got over 200 episodes that are outside of this show, talking about things that I'm hearing, also observations from rewatching games, listening to what the coaches and players are saying. Really good stuff. So check it out. Make it a great rest of your Tuesday. I hope you all have a great day, and thanks for being here. I really appreciate all of you. Can't wait. Look, Patrick, they held it at Nassau Coliseum parking lot in Long Island. There you go. Patrick knows exactly what I am talking about. All right, we're out. Grant's back at 8 o'clock tonight. Make sure you join him right here on the channel. Sorry, Adam. Sorry, I was a little bit too hard on you. Not Adam Moose, Adam Silver. But it's the truth, man. Got to turn this thing around. And expansion is not the answer. Although expansion, I'm ready for it. Give Seattle their team. Give Vegas their team. Global, not so much. Work on the game first before you go global. Anyways, go Kings. Light the damn beam. Stay the hell away from Levine. We are out. Court is dismissed.